Joyce, my friend. What's happening?
Peter, what do you say? What do you know?
It's freaking cold is what I know, man. Normally I'm in a t-shirt. Here I'm wearing a vest. It's like minus freaking 5 degrees outside. I had to walk the dog. Nearly froze to death.
Well, I'll tell you right now, I'm a cold guy. I love the cold weather, 13 degrees. As long as there's no wind, I'm good. Not really happy about the snow, but man, I walk around 32 degrees, 40, anything less than 40, I'm good. Less than 20, I start putting a jacket on. I don't even care, man. It's so good.
I mean,
so good. Love it. Love it.
Arizona and Florida.
Yeah. So I'm going to do a shout out real quick. Hassan, the original Mo. I got you. Not only I got you in the comments, I got you on a shout out. So appreciate you, Hassan, the original Mo. Great supporter to Finest Unfiltered and the 10-4 Tavern. Really appreciate it. Pete, we got a great guest today.
Yeah, man. I'll be honest with you, Tommy. I know you and I both did a lot of investigative work in our careers. I've done some international work just across the U.S.-Mexican border. I worked in Canada, which is kind of like northern Buffalo. But I've never dealt with someone that had this deep knowledge of just working cases that are truly global in nature. Working red notices, all that kind of stuff. So no, Mike's a good dude. I know him from FLEOA. Solid guy. He's got a great career. But I candidly, I've never talked to him about his career other than what I've read. So it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be interesting.
Yeah, let me give a shout out. Modern Samurai right off the bat. $20. Drinks on me, gents. Hope everyone is well. Smiley face, happy face, whatever. Yeah, Modern Samurai, thanks. Another great supporter to Finest Unfiltered. 10-4 Tavern, the executive perspective as well. Let me tell you a quick story about how I met Mike. It was at IACP in October of this year. And one of our previous guests, Jen Armstrong from the Marshals Service, episode number 7, actually, she goes, "Oh, Tommy, you want a guest for your podcast?" I was like, "Hey, we're always looking, you know." And she said, "You got to meet this guy." And she introduces me to Michael Hughes. And she gives his quick bio resume, which I'll get into in a second for our listeners. And I say, "Yeah, so it's a pleasure to meet you. I'm retired NYPD." And Jennifer was on our show with me and Pete, a couple months ago, episode number 7. And he's like, "Well, what's the concept? What's this about?" And I said, "Well, it's called the 10-4 Tavern." And he stops right there. He goes, "You had me at Tavern. I'm coming." I don't even want to know anything about what you're doing, but that's all I needed to hear. So we're going to bring in a great guest. So I'm going to bring him in, and Mike, we're going to bring you in, but then I'm going to give you a bio real quick so everyone knows who we're about to talk to. So welcome, Mike Hughes, to the 10-4 Tavern.
Thanks, Tommy. Thanks, Pete. Appreciate it. It's a pleasure being here. Really exciting. You're too kind with your words. Doing this job, we always say that it's our job. That's what we do. No matter what rank we're at, I think it's just important that we're all supporting each other, but of course, protecting the public. So appreciate being here, and thanks for the invite.
Yep. So let everybody, just so you know who Mike Hughes is, I'm sure he would, leave out a lot of the details, but I've got his bio, I got his information. So 34-year law enforcement veteran, retired U.S. Marshal, 27 plus years there, then went on to be the executive director of FLEOA, which is a federal law enforcement association. So we'll get into that a little bit tonight. Really interesting. But in the middle of that, Mike served as the director of the Washington office of INTERPOL, the United States Department of Justice, represented the United States, oversaw exchange of criminal intelligence, involvement, collaboration, 196 members supporting law enforcement across the globe. So border security, counterterrorism efforts. He also served on the executive committee, served 3 years there as well. He was the deputy marshal of the United States Marshal for the District of Columbia, which is the busiest, I believe, in the country. And so, confirmed by the U.S. Senate, he led the largest and most complex marshal's office in the country. So everybody pull up a stool, grab a chair, grab a cocktail. Mike Hughes, again, welcome to the 10-4 Tavern.
Welcome, Mike. Good to see you, brother.
Great. Thanks, Pete. Thanks, Tommy. I really like your concept, though. Pull up with a drink and just.
Well, you know what it is. You know what it is. Pete and I talked about this for a while, and then John and Eric invited us to the show. And just for those listeners, those who may be new, what it really boiled down to is we always felt like, hey, we belly up to the bar after a big caper, and sometimes when the case is not resolved, maybe the case went bad, and we belly up to the bar and we rehash it, and we do our after action review or a hot wash, whatever you want to call it, and we have a cocktail and we drink and we talk about it. And so we thought, what a great idea to have a concept of a 10-4 Tavern podcast where we talk about the great careers of people who've really contributed and carried the weight. Not people who were adjacently involved. Just so everyone knows, last week's episode with Mike Prate and Jimmy Glynn from the FBI, Mike Prate from the NYPD, it was really interesting because those two RICO cases were carried by those two guys. And I found podcasts where someone who was peripherally involved was talking about those two RICO cases, and they were not the case agents.
Yeah.
It's a little disappointing.
It happens.
I also have a friend who was in the Counterterrorism Bureau, Joint Terrorist Task Force, and he was invited onto a podcast, and he said, Tommy, I won't do it. And there's a major case from the 70s that he's the last living agent still involved in it. And this podcast wanted to talk to me. He said, Tommy, I don't do it. I just won't do it. And I said, okay, no problem. And he said, but you know what, Tommy? You know what pisses me off? I've been in presentations, sitting in the audience, and people are putting up pictures that I took. And I'm like, wow. And I said, and I know you, and you did not strangle this person? How did that not happen? He's like, I don't have time for that anymore, man. I don't have time for that. So anyway, Mike, the point that I'm getting at, and Pete will tell you because he gets the feedback a lot more from his folks on the Fed side than I do, but I get my share. The one thing I'm most proud of on this podcast is we brought the heavy hitters and the pipe hitters who really did the job. Not I watched or I was there or I contributed one report to. The people who really were involved in some of the most amazing law enforcement work in the country over the last 40, 50 years. So thanks for being here.
Thanks, Tommy. Really appreciate it. Thinking about days in New York City, we all were there, starting out and doing the hard work that we did, but also, enjoying the camaraderie of each other as well. Working hard, working. I remember my first year in the Eastern District as a deputy U.S. Marshal. We had over 1,000 hours overtime the first year. Probably needed it, making 19,000 in the city, right? But those were times where we even slept at the office somehow. Well,
hey, wait, before we get into the stories, I mean, it is the Tavern. So, Pete, what are you drinking?
I am drinking some Traveler bourbon. I had a gigantic ice cube in it, which mostly has melted. But yeah, it's Travelers. It's made by the same folks that make Buffalo Trace and some of their other very nice distilled bourbons. But yeah, cheers.
So speaking of bourbon, on February 7th, I think it is, or maybe February 17th, we have Chief Kevin Barrett from Terre Haute, Indiana. Small agency compared to the bigger cities. However, he's such a true patriot that he helped with a distillery in Kentucky, formed Responder Bourbon, and he has a red label for firemen and EMTs, EMS. He has a blue label for law enforcement, and he has a black label for the military. So he'll be a future guest. So if those bourbon drinkers, make sure you come back in February, look for the announcements. So I appreciate that. With all the snow and everything, I had to pull it together. So I went into the wine fridge, and I'm drinking a Sauvignon Blanc from Chile. It was my wife's choice. I went downstairs. I said, what do we got available? She gave me a cold bottle of Sauvignon Blanc from Chile. It's not Marlboro, New Zealand, because that's swill. It tastes like grass and smells like cat pee, but I won't drink that. But, Mike, Guinness Stout. The Irish.
Yeah, Tommy, I went with the Guinness, but poured in my Marshals glass. So that's good. This is an old one that I didn't break, but no, I definitely love the Guinness. Pete, I'm with you on the bourbon. That's usually my go-to, but I figured I'd take it light tonight.
All right. Well, Mike, walk us through. Where'd you grow up, and what was your path to becoming law enforcement?
Yeah, yeah. So the things I really hate to do, right? Talk about me. But yeah, I'm a Jersey guy. I grew up in New Jersey, born in Jersey City. I can't tell you how many people around the world I've met from the States who were born in Jersey City. Mom and dad were from there. And yeah, grew up there. I have an older brother, an older sister, younger sister. And they tend to say that my sister and my brother, older brother, younger sister, so the crust, and me and my sister are the bologna and cheese. So, but I like to say we're more the prosciutto and the provolone. But good, great upbringing in New Jersey there, and grew up in a little town called Wallington, basically up in Bergen County, and spent all the formative years up there. It was great. It's amazing. Played sports. Really loved that. Amazing family life. Mom and dad are still up there in Jersey. All my family is up in Jersey except one nephew who's close by, and just really enjoyed it. Yeah, I still keep in touch with friends from high school. I think that's so important. I still get up there a lot, and really, yeah, it was a learning time for me, and really shaped who I am, I think, and it's fun to go back to the hometown once in a while. They inducted me into the Hall of Fame for my one of my most pride, most experiences. So proud. I had no idea being selected, but it really being nominated by some old friends up there too. It was a lot of fun to get up there just a few years ago. Mom and dad and the family there, and then went on to go to Montclair State University in Montclair, New Jersey. Small school, Division III. Played football there for a year, and then after I had a 1.9 GPA that first semester, I think I had to make a decision, right? And the decision was get out of football and start concentrate a little bit on schoolwork. Plus, I think those guys are a lot bigger than me. I'll tell you that.
And you're not a small guy, brother. You're a lot taller than I am. I know we've crossed paths down in Miami a couple times, New York.
Yeah. But it's it was great. Jersey's an amazing state. You meet people all over the world from Jersey. Spent a lot of time in New York, but growing up there was really I consider it an honor and pleasure, and get up there all the time.
I will say that a lot of the Jersey folks that I know, a lot of the cops that I know, and it's an interesting place because there's such small agencies scattered all over, and the biggest ones being Camden and Newark, and that's about it. And then you have Bergen County. I got some friends. Shout out to the Bergen County guys if you're listening. They got a really good program going up there in the district attorney's office. But man, that place is ripe to be abused, bro. Come on. Jersey Shore. What exit do you live at? Like, come on, man. Like, there's a lot to pick on, but they're good people, good place, good state, for sure. But us New Yorkers, we get to pound a little ball breaking, if you will, on the New Jersey guys. So.
Yeah, the bridge and tunnel, right, Tommy?
Exactly.
We hear it all the time. And you really look at Jersey, and they call it the Garden State, but if you travel up 95, you'd say, where's all the greenery, right? Passing Elizabeth. It does get a bad rap, though. You start getting out Somerset County and some of these counties out west. It's really beautiful. But I'll tell you, don't mess with the Jersey folks. They're pretty tight,
I'll tell you what. I lived in Freehold for a couple of years before I got transferred to Arizona because we got sick and tired of living in.
Would you lose a bet?
No, and let me tell you something, Tommy. It was very nice, good restaurants, good Italian food. Best Italian restaurant I ever ate at was actually in a strip mall, believe it or not, in Freehold, next to a pool supply company. Go figure. But it was nice, man, because you had the Freehold Mall, you had the Raceway, and then if we drove 10 minutes out, there were massive farms. So I mean, yeah, if you judge New Jersey by the smell of the gas plants over there, right off of I-95, then yeah, you're going to be biased in a bad way. But no, we like Jersey. A lot of good people, a lot of good Italian food, man. A lot of good Italian food, a lot of good sandwiches too. Delis, yeah, believe me, they can hold their own.
Well, that's what I miss most about being down in the South now is all the good food. New York, New Jersey, Connecticut. I mean, just the best. But go, Mike, go.
Yeah, no, it's look, even down south, you could find, you got to look for them, but you can find some of the places. They're typically the Italian places. They're typically the folks who are moving from Jersey or New York, of course, right? It's funny. I do got to give a shout out. My sister's Texan. She used to live in Freehold, Pete. You may have met her. My sister Linda. She's teched in that. Oh yeah, you really hate to talk about yourself, and as a joke, but she's my sister who likes to pick on me. But so shout out to her. I know she's listening.
Yeah. All right, so Mike, walk us through how did you become a U.S. Marshal?
Right. I was lucky. I consider really lucky where, a lot of folks that are applying for these jobs at the time and even now had to wait years and years and years to get on the job, especially in the federal arena. It was just amazing to see how many folks waited 3, 4, 5, 8 years even in my deputy basic class. And while I was still in college, I was taking a bunch of tests, New Jersey State Police, Marshals, all different law enforcement, exams. And I remember driving to Newark with a buddy of mine who actually became a fair law cop in Jersey. And then we took the test together, and we were both selected. And we were sort of shocked, like, oh my goodness. And I remember I worked in a drugstore. I was an assistant manager going through college, and then a little bit after college, and getting a phone call from Marshals Service headquarters saying, "Hey, we got a job for you, and it's in Eastern District of New York." I didn't even know what Eastern District was at the time. Brooklyn, New York, right? And it said, and you have to report in 2 weeks. And I did probably the stupidest thing anybody could do, is I said, "Oh, let me call you back." Because in my head, I'm thinking, "Oh my goodness, Brooklyn's so far away. I thought I'd get New Jersey." And now I laugh at it because, that was a gift. But I immediately called him back and said, I take the position, and was able to, in 2 weeks, started over there, taking the train over to Brooklyn and jumping in. But I'll tell you, it's not easy. It's not easy to get into these jobs. I was really blessed and lucky to get it at that time.
I'll tell you what else isn't easy, Tommy, and a little inside baseball. And I don't know if you'll agree, Mike, or not. Like, FLEOA has 94 partner agencies that go through it. Some of it's obscure, like Bureau of Engraving and Printing Police, or the NSA Police, which patrols the grounds of, where the NSA facility is located. And then you have some of the larger ones, Secret Service, obviously, ATF, the Marshals, Homeland Security Investigations. Border Patrol used to be at FLEOA down in Brunswick. Now they're, I think, in Artesia. And the most brutalized people down there were the Border Patrol. They were, you'd wake up at 5 a.m. and hear them yelling cadence running through the woods. When they would get pepper sprayed for the drill, they got pepper sprayed with 2 hands, where we only got pepper sprayed with 1. But I will say the Marshals and ATF also were no joke. Rough academies. They beat the living shit out of you. So, Mike, you must have had fun going through FLEOA, having those memories of the yellow and blue mat rooms and all of that stuff.
Yeah. I remember Bob Natsky was famous down there for being a pretty hard self-defense instructor. And we used to throw on the Red Man gear. I think you're familiar with that.
Oh, yeah.
And go all out. I mean, all out fighting. And we used to, at the end, the culmination, one of the tests at the end was a 3-minute drill. And they pair you up with somebody, and you would be thrown in that ring like a cage match for 3 minutes. And those 3 minutes felt like hours.
Did you guys do that run in your suits back then, or was that a newer phenomenon?
No, we didn't do it in suits. We did the Marshal Mile, they used to call it. at the end. And literally is graduation day in the morning. We get up, they do it to this day. And you'd run over 10 miles, and every half mile to a mile, you'd be doing push-ups and burpees and sit-ups and everything else. And you come right, but at the end, it's magical, really. At the end, you'd come running in, and all the families would be there, and then and all the instructors and everyone clapping. You'd go shower up, get ready, throw on your suit, and go graduate and get your badge and gun.
There's one
Wait,
thing
you guys had to do it. Wait, Pete, I'm sorry. You guys had to do a 10-mile run on the last day of the academy?
Yeah, Tommy, we did. We were, hardcore down there,
No, but here's my point: is there's a lot of belly aching going on up here in New York City right now over a 1.5 mile run.
No, yeah, down in Fletcher.
Bro,
hey, look, I'm not gonna lie. It's not so bad running through the trails of Fletcher. You're running through the woods. You see deer and coral snakes, which they'll bite you. But the marshals nowadays, because I'm friends with the guy who runs their training, Matt Hershey, great guy. They have a day where they run several miles in business attire, and I think it's day one, just to welcome you to the academy. You show up in your suit with a tie and everything. You're wearing shoes. All right, motherfuckers, let's go, and they're out for a run. I mean, it's the marshals don't play when it comes to training.
Well, I'm sorry to interrupt, Mike, but I just had to bring that up because there is a lot of drama going on right now. Eric and John and Marlon addressed it. The 1.5 mile run, and there's some belly aching, and it's so bad. And what I tried to, my perspective is, some people actually said, well, you're never going to have to run 1.5 miles when you're on patrol as a New York City police officer after a perpetrator, which is true. The longest I ever probably ran after anybody, I've caught nobody, by the way. I never caught anybody because I run like I got a refrigerator on my back, right? But the reality of it is it's not the length of the run, it's the cardio. When you're in the fight for your life, and you were just talking about the 3-minute grappling and wrestling and and when I fought a boxing match once. I did it for charity on a smoker in 2004. And John Coughlin was my sergeant that worked for me in the 7-9. And he said, listen, Tommy, we got to get you into the smoker. It's for charity. You got to fight this guy, whatever. And he's like, I'm going to train you. Don't worry. I'll train you up. And I go in there and I'm hitting the bag and I'm hitting the bag, speed bag, heavy bag, speed bag, heavy bag. And he's like, no, stop that nonsense. You know, throw a punch, combo. Here's got the mitts. He's like, we run. We do stairs and we run. We do stairs and we run. We do stairs and we run. I go, what the hell is all of that about boxing? He goes, cardio. And so my feeling is when you're in a fight of your life and you're retaining your gun and you're wrestling for another gun that the perp might have brought, you need as much wind as you can. So it's not about the length of the run. It's the length of your cardio and your stamina.
Yeah. Well, Tommy, I'll go one step further. Look, when I went through the ATF Academy, I hadn't run since the NYPD Academy. I was 35 when I went through the ATF Academy. And there were days we did 10-mile runs. Most of the stuff we did was, calisthenics, push-ups, jumping jacks, those things where you put your arms out to the side, make small circles. But I looked at it differently. It's like, how bad do you want this job? Right? I mean, look, I hated fucking driving more than 3 miles, more or less running more than 3 miles, but I had to get in shape and be able to do it. So, I mean, look, if 1.5 mile run is part of what's expected of you, suck it up, buttercup, man. Get, that's that. If you want, then get ready to do that 1.5 mile run. I mean, Mike talked about a 10-mile run. Most people will never run 10 miles in their life, but that's what he had to do for the Marshals Academy. And guess what? He did it, right? So, yeah.
Yeah, and look, and it was the terrain too, right? We weren't just running on streets. We did a lot of street runs, of course, but you're running through the woods with the animals and all those. Who knows what the heck's around you? Right. That's another thing. You're running, but you're paying attention on what's going on. And then also, if you remember, Pete, the field where they had all the sand. We used to call it the beach, and we would be doing push-ups, sit-ups. I mean, you would be filled with dirt, mud, sand, fire ants, no sand.
Fire ants eating you alive. And then the smell of the paper mill. Remember the paper mill? And then the worst, man, at Fletcher, Tommy, they have these black flag days. If it goes above 90 degrees, because the humidity down there is stifling. If it goes above 90 degrees, they're not supposed to run you. Some agencies, to include the Marshals and the Border Patrol, they would take the flag down temporarily and run them in like 100 degrees with like 90% humidity, where you felt like you were drinking because the air was so thick. But yeah, man, if you wanted the job, you sucked it up and did it.
Yeah, and it's a discipline, right?
Yeah.
Look, you got to have a measurement to have the people in there that are willing to stay and be in the fight, because those people are the ones that are going to be your partners someday and on the streets with you. And if they don't have the stamina, but the mental and physical discipline to do what needs to be done, then it puts not only your life at risk, but it's putting the whole department, and it's putting all the community at risk. So that discipline and that it's really the discipline, right? And the ability to do the job.
Yeah. Hold on one second. So I just want to make an acknowledgement because the topic brought up an issue. Modern Samurai, thanks. Funny, we're talking about running. Rest in peace, Kevin Lee. Fidelis Ad Mortem. So in January 27, 2006, I just wanted to pull it up. Police officer Kevin Lee in Manhattan suffered a fatal heart attack during a foot pursuit with 3 suspects on Lexington Avenue. So never forget police officer Kevin Lee. So Modern Samurai, thanks for bringing that up. All right, sorry. So let's get back to a lot of training. You're in the academy. Anything left with that? And let's fight. Let's start putting handcuffs on bad guys in the Marshals.
Yeah. So so the academy ends. I head back to Brooklyn. I remember, I remember my first warrant. I was out with Jerry Duty and Mike Hollander, my 2 supervisors. One supervisor and one partner who was showing me the ropes on my first fugitive hit. Of course, do the investigation, locate the suspect. We're out in Brooklyn. And I remember us going out, and back in those days, we had these short shotguns at the time too. I don't know if you remember that, but way back in 1990, early 90s. And we're going to do that first hit. I'll never forget that we bang on the door, announce, and have a warrant, of course. And I recall that nobody's come, but they heard somebody running around inside. They said, "Take the door." I take the door. And then I go, okay. I kick the door, right at the door handle. It wasn't a really strong door. My foot goes right through the door. Literally, my foot is sticking in the door. They pull me out. Then we took the door off. I'd never forget that. And they said, you kicked it too hard. But we go in and we're able to do something. I'm not going to get into the whole investigation and everything, but I always remember that first hit with Jerry Duty pulling me out of the door over in Brooklyn, New York. Funny story, humbling story. But look, as time goes on, you learn, right? That's what we have to do. Learn from the mistakes, learn from the good, learn from the bad. And went on to do a whole bunch of fugitive investigations in New York. But one of the things that was really, an honor at the time, Charles Healy, he was the marshal there in Eastern District, Charlie Healy, and old Irish homicide cop from NYPD. And I became the marshal there in Eastern District of New York. And I don't know if he took a liking in me or something, but he made me the fit instructor, maybe because nobody else wanted to do it. And I remember it's some of the best advice I ever got, just in the first couple of months there in Eastern District. It was take the jobs that nobody wants, right? Always take those jobs nobody wants, because you're stepping up, doing what you want. Donate, contribute as much as you can to the TSB, right, from day one. And then also join FLEOA. That was literally at that time. That was the 3 pieces of advice. I took those 3 pieces of advice, and it served me well.
Little did he know you would eventually become the executive director of FLEOA. So, and we'll get into that. And folks, for everybody, stick around. Don't get out of here, because we're going to talk about what it means to look out for the interests of all the federal agents. I think it's 30. Your membership is about 33,000, and especially what's going on up in Minnesota and around the rest of the country. And again, we're not going to go down the political lines, but we're definitely going to look for the best interests of the federal officers that are in this engaged effort to eliminate and eradicate and remove the violent criminals that are also here illegally. So we'll talk about a little bit about that and how the FLEOA is serving to protect the interests of those officers and agents. So go ahead. Sorry to interrupt. I just gotta keep the thing going here.
No, thanks, Tommy. One of the things that was so that I learned early, and sometimes you don't realize it, right? You're going through your career and you look back on it and you say some of the things that you did, and that was the networking. And really, I did was on a lot of different task forces because I enjoyed it. I liked working with people from NYPD and ATF and Marshals, probation, parole back then, and being able to share experiences. And I remember even I was on a Newark, New Jersey task force with Safe Streets, the high intensity. It wasn't high, it was the FBI Safe Streets Task Force. And we just started it up there at Gateway Center, and the people working with the prosecutor's office, sheriff's office, all the state, local, federal. Everybody's cooperating, and the results that we got on arresting the carjacking people, all the violent crimes, the cases that we got was incredible because of the resources that we brought to one place. I remember Pete Edge, who was the head of HSI. We worked together in Newark when he was local, a local guy, and formed these friendships to this day. We actually co-wrote an article in IACP Police Chief magazine. And we still keep in touch because it's that's the way you get the job done, right? Good investigation work is important, but without those connections, boy, you're really hindering yourself. And I don't know, something made me think about that, and maybe everything that's going on in the world today. But just thinking about my career, that's something that is important, and I would share with anybody is make sure you're talking and sharing information and working together.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, from my experience, the Marshals is, of the federal agencies, probably the one that works the best with other federal agencies and with state and locals. And here's a little something I'll throw at you that'll probably blow everybody's minds. Because I used to sit on the shooting review committee for ATF when I was the head of training because we wanted to learn from the shootings that happened. You know that the U.S. Marshal Service has more shootings than the FBI, ATF, and the DEA combined. And that's because they go after some really bad people who are wanted for some really bad stuff. I mean, they're not going out there looking for stuff. I mean, literally, the people they go hunt down, they have paper on warrant, and those people know that they're being looked for. So yeah, think about that for a second. The Marshal Service has more shootings than FBI, which is way bigger than the Marshal Service personnel-wise, ATF, which is not as big as the Marshal Service, and DEA combined.
Yeah.
Dangerous job.
When I said that was Pete, sorry, when you were talking and I just said that's awesome. I certainly don't mean that they're involved in shootings. I think it really speaks to the heroics and when we talk about bringing pipe hitters onto the show to talk about the things that they've done, the Marshals, when I say it's awesome, is like, I didn't know that statistic. I'm not surprised by it at all. I do know a lot of the NYPD Marshals Task Force guys, and I want to get the years that you worked with the NYPD on that, so I see if we can drop names and see if we have shared friends. I'm pretty sure we do. But it really shows that these U.S. Marshals are stepping up to face the worst of the worst. Right. So when I say it's awesome, I mean it's awesome in the sense of they are putting themselves in between people that they don't even know and have never met in their life, and they're willing to risk life and limb to protect the community. And that's what it's all about. And that's what this whole career is about. So, Mike, back to you. Go back to your task force list. Pete, I'm sorry, you had a final thought before we go back to Mike and his career.
No, I just wanted to bring that point up because I know we have a lot of cops that listen in, and obviously nobody wants to get in a shooting. And the other thing I'll say, man, you don't hear about their shootings. You know why? Because they're good shootings. I mean, they're not out there, getting involved in things that are questionable. Because when something's questionable, especially it involves law enforcement, we hear about it. So I mean, yeah, these guys are heroes.
No, thanks, guys. The amount of people that the marshals go after back then and now, not only federal fugitives, but through our regional fugitive task forces, assisting with the state and locals. I mean, you're talking over 100,000, a year with what, about 3,500, 4,000 deputy U.S. Marshals now ish, plus all of our partners. That's a lot of people that were arrested each and every year, fugitives. Now, like you said, these are people who know they're being looked for, and are always watching their back. So, getting the element of surprise is always good, right? So.
Yeah. So, Mike, let's NYPD Marshal Task Force. Can you name drop some people? See if we have some common.
No, it was so I was back there in
years?
91 to 95 ish.
Okay.
And then after that I pretty much went into more witness security. I think.
Okay.
What's that?
Do you know Furman Archer, Sonny Archer? He was an NYPD. He was originally a transit guy, and then John Heinz and John Ross. They were Taru guys. They worked with the Marshal Task Force. They were the guys who were getting up on phones and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Which was big back then when it was.
Those guys came into my office working with the Fugitive Task Force with the Marshals, and they were setting up, getting up on phones and cell towers with dial-up on AOL and all that kind of shit. So it was pretty cool. So anyway, but go ahead.
Those were the days we used to, climb the poles and do the work and. All that. Times have changed. We have evolved, thank goodness, right?
For sure.
It was it was a time. It was rough back then, and New York City, going through its cycles, right? And it was really tough. One of the toughest things that we had, challenges we had, was our marshal badges were stars or are stars, right? So New York City doesn't really understand that, right? It's always the shield, the badge. So a lot of times we had to, improvise with the badges and stuff too. Tough time back then.
Yeah. So where'd you go after that?
I witness security, WITSEC. Yeah, that's a time when we had, Sammy the Bull days and all of that. We were bringing them in a lot, and it was the big OC time still, but the Gotti days and things like that. I was on the Gotti trial in Eastern District too. And I forget, actually had to fly, and when I don't know if you remember when in Eastern District they bust in, the crime families, Gambino in particular, bust in a whole bunch of folks and literally attacked the courthouse. Back in '92, they stormed the courthouse. NYPD was being attacked. We were being attacked, and we had to get Gotti out the back door and wound up literally the next day flying him over to Marion, Illinois, in a private jet. But those days, but it was funny because I was on the trial. Then all of a sudden, now we have Sammy the Bull, right? So handling all that situation. Bringing them to court, but those WITSEC days were a lot of fun. And in New York City, I was doing a lot of more, what we'd say, the production end of witness security, and then I was able to voluntarily transfer down south to Miami and do more of a combination of witness security productions, and as well as relocations and things like that around the region, handling things like that. And I'll tell you, covert protection is not an easy thing to do. And even in the witness security field, things have changed a lot.
Yeah. So, Mike, I think for our show and the platform that has multiple shows with the executive perspective and the Finest Unfiltered, this covert security operation that you're talking about would absolutely be unique. So, to the extent that you can share things, not breach any covenant, it had to be some funny, crazy stuff going on.
Yeah, just like covert or overt, you see some funny, crazy stuff going on.
Yeah.
That's the job, right? And it's how you handle it as well. Not to risk, divulging anything or witness security, because it is one of the only programs that's 100% still to this day have not lost a witness who didn't violate the rules, right? And that's really something that not many programs could speak about having that kind of success. But it was a great time. We had a really tight knit group, and we still chat to this day. But being able to do that work and you see the movies, you see what goes on there, and even with the fugitive, right? Calling the chopper and all that. I wish I could call it a chopper sometimes, but being able to work on the other side with the protection and more of the covert stuff was really a lesson. But really, I think what formed my next step after that was when I went to DC, was promoted my supervisory roles in WITSEC, and being able to lead them from up there was sort of the next step in my career, and being able to then use that experience to give the advice, to give the guidance to the teams in the field on what to do. Different back then. Think about technology, how it's evolved. Harder nowadays with social media to be able to hire people and have them, keep them alive. That's basically the job, right?
Especially with facial recognition being a thing now. I would imagine that has to be a huge challenge for that program that didn't exist back in our day.
I imagine, right? Yeah, imagine for sure. But no, fun times. Look, I was down in Miami. It was incredible being able to live down there and work and do what I was doing. Great group of folk. And then, the next career step for me was, hey, time to get promoted and make a little bit more money.
Okay, hold that promotion for a second. I got a little house cleaning to do. So if you're listening in on another platform other than YouTube, you probably can't comment. So I received some text messages from some people. I can't comment, but I wanted to share some information, blah, blah, blah. I sent them over to YouTube. So if you want to comment, you want to get into the chat, jump over to YouTube if you can. Otherwise, you got to run with it and listen in. And it's funny because X really does carry a lot of listeners, but we want to push everybody over to YouTube because it's good for the algorithm for the show, all 3 shows on the platform. So that would be great. But I have a person who will, unless he texts me right now and says I can name him, he said he was on the NYPD warrant squad when he worked closely with the U.S. Marshals, and they might have borrowed some duplicate NYPD shields for street cred. Know anything about that?
Never heard of that, Tommy. Or actually, what's our saying?
Is it impossible?
I can neither confirm nor deny that.
There you go.
They weren't the only agency to do that either, Tommy.
Yeah. So.
But I'll tell you what, if anybody was wise enough to incorporate some sort of tactic like that, it probably helped in not only keeping them alive and safe, but also making the right arrest, right?
Yeah.
I think that if someone were to take advantage of your idea there, Tommy, then that might have been a good idea.
Well put, sir. All right, so you said promotion.
DC. So put in for the promotion. There was some jobs opening up in DC, and crazy enough to make the move from Miami to DC voluntarily, but it was definitely worth it in retrospect. You don't want to be in Miami too long. I think it's such a late city, but it's fun city. Great working environment, but for me, it was time to come back a little up north, right? Time to get back to the cool weather. I didn't like Christmas in the heat, So came back up to DC and went into witness security as a case manager there over at headquarters. and basically managing field inspectors. But that's right at the time that 9/11 happened. So look, I remember. I guess that's sort of the next time for me. That was such, one of the pivotal moments. I think we all remember 9/11. Those of us who were around for it. We got some folks who are coming on the job who weren't even were kids or weren't even born then, right? But that 9/11 was a time that really, I think, affected many of us. You guys too, especially you guys, right?
Yeah, no doubt.
I still remember I was in Crystal City, where our headquarters was, with the Marshals, and on TV. I was in early in the morning always, and you look up the TV and you see the plane go in, and like, what the heck? Everybody's gathering around, watching and looking what's going on, and then it's like, oh, what a terrible accident, right? Then the second plane goes in, and everybody realized this is no accident. This is terrible. And all of a sudden, we're looking outside, and you see the smoke coming up from the Pentagon, and then you see reports about the Pentagon being hit. And I'll tell you, talk about a time that you see everybody go in crisis mode, and really start to dig in deep. That was a time. That was a time that all of a sudden, I remember our leadership all getting together and setting up the command center, starting out all the incident management things that we need to do. We had a team surrounding our buildings. We had people on the roof. We had people going to assist at the Pentagon. It was just a time where that coordinated effort and that training really comes into play. And everybody pitched in and really reacted, at least that first day, and even moving forward in a positive way. It was good to see everybody pitching in and doing what they needed to do.
Yeah. And the Marshals headquarters is like right there, like right near the Pentagon too. So I mean, yeah, you're in it.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, a couple of days later, I remember we were in the office. It was literally 2 days later. One of my good friends and one of my best friends, but he was one of our witness security chiefs. He's like, you got your bag? You got a go bag? You got stuff here? I go, yeah. He goes, I need you to get to Andrews Air Force Base. We put on a detail on then FEMA director Joe Albo, who was the FEMA director at the time. And of course, the planes were grounded, but we were taking a military flight up there. So literally going to the Andrews, being driven to Andrews while I'm getting changed, half changed, running down the tarmac because they couldn't drive on the tarmac, sweating in September heat, sweating with my bag and hopping on the flight, the military flight we were going to LaGuardia, we were going up to New York. They set up the command center, the Javits Center. I think you guys can remember that. Mm-hmm. And I remember getting on a flight, and I sweat. I'm a sweater, and I am dripping sweat. I go to the back of the plane. I get my bag. I'm washing up, changing my shirt, and then a couple other agents on the flight, and the guy about 6'4", shaved head. He's sitting there. We're chatting a little bit. I said, he gets up. The guy's like huge. And I go, he goes, what are you here for? I said, I got to start this detail on this FEMA director, Joe Albo. I heard he's a good guy, but, I'm looking forward to meeting him. And so I stick in my hand. I introduce myself. Mike Hughes, he sticks out his hand down to me. He goes, Joe Albo. I say to him right there, I said, who's protecting who here? The guy was monster who wound up, of course, we landed and we wound up meeting a Huey helicopter there, got on it. Schumer and Clinton were on it as well. And we did a flyover to on the World Trade Center. And we did a flyover, and these are those sites that you never forget. The sights and the smells. The smell that was there. The sight. It was. You could have heard a pin drop. Everybody had tears in their eyes.
Yep.
Just the emotion was filled that chopper. And we landed. We ended up driving there. And I don't know if you guys were there, but boy, your shoes were just filled with that white soot, mud, and the feeling and emotion that were there, and the emergency workers that were chipping in and just working day and night. Boy, it was just super emotional, life changing, and I think that everybody remembers, I think, that where they were on 9/11.
Yeah. No, I appreciate it. Hold on a second. Let's do some work here. VR Forever, $20 to the super chat. So for snow removal and beverages for the 10-4 Tavern team. So appreciate VR Forever. Appreciate that. And the Finest Unfiltered, thanks you. So we'll do that. Yep. So sorry about that, Mike, but we got to acknowledge the chat. It's part of the show. We love them. Every once in a while, we get some really interesting chats. So I'm proud to say that Beauty and something or whatever it was, we only had to give one timeout. We had to give a timeout to somebody in the chat once, which is really funny because the Finest Unfiltered is a First Amendment free speech. You can say whatever you want. You can have any opinion you want. We attack ideas. We don't attack people. So someone was in the chat once and they were just attacking people and they were attacking the guests and they were attacking us and they were attacking the chat, people in the chat and everything. We don't have time for distractions like that. We want to celebrate law enforcement and the work and the noble work that the men and women do. If you don't agree with something that might have happened somewhere, that's fine, but start attacking people. So tonight's really good. We got a really good show, really good chat. So we want to acknowledge the people who give us the super chats. And Lily, 99, she backs the blue. She's a good fan and a solid supporter of the Finest Unfiltered. So, Mike, again, I have to do some acknowledgement of the viewers and the chat. They're awesome, and that's part of the show. But let's get back to you. So after 9/11, 2001, get into the mid-2000s. Let's start walking towards the end of your career and the big assignments you have in the Marshals, and then how you transition over to Interpol and how that happens.
Yeah.
Oh, wait. No, I'm sorry. And then there's a Linda Hughes jumping in. Linda Hughes, 1WC. Love my brother. She said she's proud of you. So really nice to see some. I'm assuming it really is your sister. So thanks, Linda, for coming on. Really appreciate it. Pretty special. And guess what, Linda? The members who serve, the men and women who serve, it's not just them, it's the families. Without the support systems, this doesn't work. This whole thing doesn't work. Law enforcement and military, without the families, it doesn't work. End of story. So thanks, Linda.
Thanks, Tom.
Come on, let's start wrapping up the Marshals and get into Interpol.
Yeah, that's the one, Pete. That's the freehold one. So I'm sure she knows the strip mall and everything you're talking about.
Ferraris was the name of that restaurant. So I'll tell you something that happened in my mid-career that really helped a lot, Tommy.
Oh, that's my other sister, Tommy.
So you got the one who's most proud of you, but then you got your favorite is the other one.
That's the younger sister there. Thanks, sister.
Well, the youngest is always favored, right?
That's funny. So something happened. Look, that typically doesn't happen with law enforcement folks that I was able to take advantage of at the time. Was Department of Justice offered this legislative fellowship. Pete, you probably remember with ATF, and you were able to apply and get this congressional legislative fellowship. And I applied thinking that nothing would come out of it, and then all of a sudden I got a call that I was selected for this legislative fellowship. Let me tell you, the experience of working a couple of years on the Hill in the Senate, I worked. At the time, I was chosen to work for a Senator Lautenberg from New Jersey, right? Just so happens, my own state senator. I was assigned over there, and seeing how understanding the executive side, right? The U.S. Marshals and Department of Justice, then working so close with the third.
I think we got a stall here.
Oh, no.
Mike stalled. All right, we'll see. Let me. There he goes. You back?
Mike, for a second.
Understanding how I say the sausage gets made, so to speak, how these policies and procedures and legislation get done, and being able to really understand that and know there's a reason sometimes for things to move at the pace it does. The old saying that the house is the teapot, the tea cup that boils and boils and boils, it overflows and goes into the tea plate, which is the Senate, to let things calm down a little bit. Sort of understanding that. Although I get annoyed at it, and we may get annoyed at it a lot because we know things that we want done. Congress, it should be really trying to work to push that forward. And it gave me a chance to see that firsthand, to see how it's done. And I think that really helped me a lot to sort of understand, tempered me a lot as well. Instead of being so impulsive about things, to try to be a little bit more thoughtful on not only what we want to do, but why we want to do it, how we're going to get it done, who's going to do it, and so forth. Really led me to have a different mindset. And then going back to the Marshals and being able to work congressional affairs on the other side and try to get the laws enacted was a good learning experience. So, I've held a lot of jobs. I did that on purpose. That was something that was sort of intentional on my part because I wanted to see and have as many experiences as I can. But that was sort of a pivotal time in my career as well, being able to sort of step out and see the executive branch from a different angle and experience that. And something that really helped me throughout my career.
Yeah. Good to challenge yourself, it's good to step outside of the comfort zone, so to speak.
It sure is. You hit it, P, by challenge yourself. Do things that you may be uncomfortable in. I always say to myself, but to others, when you get comfortable in a position, when you get comfortable in your job, it's time to find a different job. Because you're always challenging yourself, even if you're taking courses, trying to get certifications, or just don't be complacent. Get in there and really challenge yourself.
So, Mike, we got Marlon Bethel on here, fired detective. Long story why that's his handle, but I'm happy to share that if you got some time during the podcast. But Marlon, great detective, NYPD, Intel Division. Did it prepare you for the diplomacy needed dealing with foreign agencies and bureaucracies when you eventually made it over to Interpol?
Yes. Look, I think that.
Sorry.
Yeah. But,
Get some of that Guinness. Go ahead. So, how to prepare you for that and then start working into Interpol?
Yeah, just having the temperament. When you're dealing, when I was in Interpol, especially when I became, when I hopped on the executive committee of Interpol, which Interpol has 196 countries, and literally dealing with people from Canada and UK to China and Russia. And and what a lot of people who don't understand Interpol, one of the things that I think all cops, all police officers understand around the world is if you're a good cop, right? You could be thrown in any country on a homicide case and work well together and be able to speak pretty much the same police language, right? Depending on the case. We worked sex offender cases, we worked homicides, we worked fraud, but having the demeanor to work with other cops, right, police officers from other countries, you speak the same language. So when it was funny being asked, how could you work with Russia police, police from Russia? Well, they're solving, they're looking for our people or trying to help us out or help fellow countries out of kids who are being molested or human trafficked, and we got to work together as police officers. We got to work together with cases like that because that's our job. That's what we do as police officers. Now, in my role as an executive committee, one of the 14 members of the board of directors, basically for Interpol, big Interpol, Lyon. There's 14 elected members. I was elected as the delegate for the Americas, North, South, Central. And one of the things that I did in my role was dealt with a lot of ministers and heck, even presidents we spoke with, prime ministers and parliament people. And that's where the diplomacy helps, and being able to stay calm, stay cool, stay tempered, know the issues, and being able to argue on behalf of Interpol, right? But also the U.S. in my role as director for the United States. I'll give you an example. Fentanyl, right? We were dealing a lot and continue to deal a lot on the fentanyl issue, something I was deeply involved with in my role. Not only as a director, but also as the board of director executive committee. And so having access to folks, the precursors, as those folks who are familiar with fentanyl, a lot of precursors are done in Asia, mostly China. Precursors come mostly down through Central South America, up through, get produced into the fentanyl, get trafficked through Mexico and come up, right? That's standard routes. Basic, but being able to deal with the ministers of China and have conversations about this, it takes tact, but also you got to be on your game and know what the issues are. So all of the ability to break down the issue and deal with those ministers in a way that they understand what you're talking about. Maybe not agree, but at least you could get your point across. That was the important part with the diplomacy. Getting them at the table. Two, being able to describe the situation. And three, the ultimate goal would be coming to an understanding where you could get an agreement. Just getting them to the table in a lot of these countries, and even getting us to the table sometimes was a challenge. But the one thing that I was always open to was able to have those conversations, and some of them were hard conversations. But that's our job, and that's what we need to be working towards, making the world a safer place.
Yeah. So, Mike, and thanks for the assist, Marlon. It's a great question. So Lily asked a question about Interpol. So we do have some listeners who don't fully understand the breadth of Interpol and the international and the complexity. So again, I'm going to go back to my little text buddy over here, who, if he gives me the okay, I'll mention his name. But detectives, no matter where they are in the world, they want to solve crimes. It's the executives and the chiefs and probably at the higher level of politicians that have conflict. But why don't you just give us an idea and the audience an idea of what Interpol is and why it's important for the global network of criminals for that. So just set that up for people, because everything you talked about is really important and really valuable. But for the listeners who don't understand what Interpol is, because there might be somebody listening tonight who's never even heard of Interpol. So set that up and then go back to the fentanyl collaboration and the difference between Canada and UK and Russia and China, because I'm sure there are pretty stark differences.
That's great, Tommy. Look, it's something that a lot of people don't understand. We watch Red Notice. We watch a lot of this other movies about Interpol, and you see Interpol agents. Interpol, there are no Interpol agents, right? Per se, Interpol has no law enforcement authority. Interpol is a for those people who really don't know what Interpol does. Interpol is basically an association, right? Like FLEOA, like the International whatever association, International Law Enforcement Association. And Interpol is based in Lyon, France. It's been around for 200 years, based in Lyon, France. And 196 member countries belong to it. So think of Interpol as like, I don't know, I hate to use the UN, but the headquarters in France. That's the General Secretariat. That's where there's about 1,000 employees there that are permanent employees and seconded or detailed employees from all around the world that work in different areas of Interpol. All different crimes. Keep in mind, this is transnational crime. So you're talking OC, drugs, human trafficking, motor vehicles, right down the line. They cover it all. That is where all the that's the think tank, where all the information goes. The 196 member countries that belong to Interpol are basically the backbone of the organization. That's the law enforcement component. United States has Interpol Washington, that collaborates with all state, local, federal, tribal, territorial police in the United States. That's who my office collaborated with here to make sure that we were getting information that we needed to Interpol and getting information back from Interpol that we needed, depending on the crime type. Now that goes on in every country. Every 196 member countries has a national central bureau, which is that law enforcement component within that country. Keep in mind, the United States has over 100 federal agencies, over 18,000, we say, police agencies, right? You mention that number anywhere in the world, people's eyes glare over. Because typically, in a lot of countries, most countries, vast majority of countries, there's only 1, 2, maybe 3 federal police offices, exactly. And they have the provincial police, right? So somewhere within their national police is the National Central Bureau. And we had that here in the U.S. as well. That's the backbone. That's the law enforcement. We're not Interpol agents. We're Marshals, FBI's, HSI, ERO. We were here basically in the U.S. We were a task force in a lot of ways because we had so many members. We had permanent members, full-time employees of Interpol Washington for the U.S., but we also had detailees as well, which was very important, right? The SMEs in those particular areas. So that's the law enforcement part. So you have Lyon, which is like the headquarters. You have all the 196 member countries, which where the law enforcement go. Then you have the board of directors that oversees everything. That's the executive committee. That's the 14 members who are elected for 3-year terms, except the president has the 4-year term, who oversees the operations of the organization. Now, every year, the 196 member country sends representatives, delegates to the General Assembly. Each year it's picked in a different area. Somebody chooses to sponsor it. This past year it was in Marrakesh, Monaco, and where they chose a new Interpol Secretary General, Valdeci Urquiza from Brazil, who actually sat on the executive committee with me. He runs it as the Secretary General, the day-to-day operations. The executive committee oversees it. The National Central Bureaus is the country's agents, let's say, who contribute information and get information back. It is a law enforcement information exchange, one of the most effective and one of the best information exchanges around the country. A lot of people don't know exactly what it does. Sometimes that's good. I used to see that with the Marshals. Sometimes it's good. People don't know what we do. Sometimes it's bad. But, right? but that's pretty much what Interpol is.
So, Mike, during your time there, let me ask you this: like, of the matters that you personally had to deal with, like, which one for you had the most impact? And then there was a question in the chat. Maybe you could address even before you go there. Does Interpol have its own? You know, like the FBI has its most wanted list. The Marshals have the 10 most wanted. Does Interpol have a most wanted list as well?
They up until this point, no. That's something that I was working on, wanting to do, looking for sponsors. Interpol's always looking for sponsors, right? Because it costs money to do things, right? So like an association, we're always looking for sponsors. Anybody wants to be a sponsor of FLEOA, let me know, right? It costs money to do a lot of these things. So Interpol does look for different sponsors, and we're in the midst of trying to do that. I think it's an amazing idea. I think that would be awesome to have an Interpol top 10, top 50, top 100 wanted list. It's not done just yet.
But, okay, so and as far as like the stuff that you personally worked on, like what case or what project brought you the most satisfaction during your time as a chief there?
We had something that we were big with. Look, we did international fugitive roundups and arrests that we were part of. They were called infra operations. So these infra operations brought together different countries who concentrated on the worst of the worst, brought about 2 or 3 cases each, and went out into the respective areas, shared information, coordinated through headquarters. Of course, it's a fugitive operation. That's where my heart is, right? So we're able to do that. We also dealt a lot with NCMEC, National Center of Missing and Exploited Children, where we worked really and continue to work close with them to get all their information, feed it, not all the information that they are willing to share, and ingest it into the Interpol computer so that other countries could have access to it and be able to track down and help out, not only them, but other organizations as well. Sharing of that information with the child predators and being able to track these predators and sex offenders around the country. Like in the U.S., you have the Adam Walsh Act, where they're not allowed, right, to travel out of the country unless they report it. Marshals are responsible for that, right? And other being able to help out and see the patterns and where these folks were going, and being able to hopefully save a child's innocence, right, from these folks, being able to help them other countries and stop that, and human trafficking was really important. We had a lot of operations. Anybody out there that wants to see some of the operations we worked, go to the Interpol website and you can look up a lot of these operations. Like one of the good ones was the Operation Lionfish, and that was we targeted drug trafficking networks, mostly in South America, and we were able to seize, with cooperation of other countries, a lot of drugs, and bring a lot of people to justice within their respective jurisdictions. The cooperation and the operations that are working throughout Interpol are not just country specific. They're really international in nature, which is great, because I always say when we're looking at drugs, guns, terrorism, right, counterterrorism, me as the director, I'm always looking, we want to help other countries, because if we could stop it in the Caribbean, if we could stop it in Mexico, if we could stop it in South Africa, in Africa, right, or anywhere around the country, we stop it there, we're stopping it from getting to us. So being able to help stop drugs, guns, terrorism outside the U.S. stops it from coming here, because most of the time, and a lot of times, it's coming here because we got the money, right? That's people want to sell the drugs. And here's where they're doing it. But that's why one of the things that we did was we were able to work to partner with other countries and set up their Interpol systems, right? We were known and still known as the premier office in Interpol, the premier country, right? We led the charge, and some countries, they're lucky, quite frankly, if they have internet access, right? They're still working on dial-up. Some countries, they're lucky if they have a laptop. Some countries, right? So the more we could go into other countries and help them build up their capabilities and capacities and train them, the better they are at utilizing Interpol systems and the communication systems with other countries, the safer everybody is. They don't know something's brewing in their country, or not able to pass that along. That could be a piece of information that we miss in counterterrorism or drugs, guns, human trafficking. That could have stopped or prevented something. So building the capacity and capability of all Interpol National Central Bureaus is vital to the U.S. interests and to the interests of all member countries. If you're following my line of thinking.
Yeah. So hold on, Pete. So Pete, I'm going to let you get your thought, but after Pete talks, we always ask our guests to share photos from their career. Mike, you are heavily weighted in the Interpol. We had your high school football Hall of Fame, right? And then we have some other stuff, but I want to go through because of all these different countries that you spoke to. So I'm going to bring those up in a second. So while I bring those up to the stage, Pete, I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No, question. I had one question. I know every now and then we would see in the news here someone arrested for basically child sex tourism. Like they would travel to another country to have sex with a child in Thailand or somewhere down in South Central America. I would imagine Interpol has a hand in those cases, probably in both countries, correct? Or am I wrong?
It may, it may not, and that's the one thing about Interpol too. It's they don't insert themselves in the cases. It's really the purview of the nation, of the country, whether they're going to utilize that or not. Countries are not bound to work with Interpol. I would suggest that they're better off working with them unless there's a reason to keep it contained. But I always say, you got Europol, Ameripol, Afripol, these regional law enforcement associations, but that Interpol really just, you're rounding out all the countries to get the most information you can. Now, maybe there's a reason Europol or one of the other law enforcement associations or areas want to just keep it confined, and that's of course their prerogative. But you're really getting exponential benefit payback when you use Interpol.
Thanks, Mike.
Okay, so before we go through a bunch of Interpol photos of different countries that you were in, Mike, two things. One, Stephen SST or SS Tiger. Thanks for asking that question, Pete. Really appreciate it. Stephen SS Tiger, strong supporter and constant viewer and chat member. So thanks, Stephen. John Benet Ramsey, when that case went crazy, because as a homicide detective, the John Benet Boulder case is intriguing to me. It's a disaster, and it's probably the most disappointing case that is sensationalized that I've ever seen. What a complete cluster. And we'll leave it at that. But when that goofball in the Philippines, I think it was, that like admitted to it, and then there was some social. Does Interpol get involved in that, or was Interpol outside of that, or is there a is there involvement? I would imagine there is, right?
It may have been. I'm not familiar if Interpol was particularly involved. That was back in the late 90s,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, well, late
And then
90s,
I wonder-
2000s. And then because it was many years later, so it creeped into the thousands, but yeah.
Yeah. So they may have been, Tommy. I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah. But would it be so I guess what I'm asking is, when these cases, especially sensationalized cases in the United States or any other country, has an involvement, do they reach out to, and is Interpol sometimes involved, always involved? Like how does someone decide, like, we need the resources and assistance of Interpol to help facilitate the process and information sharing and collaboration? Because when you were saying we're looking for sponsors, it kind of feels like it really needs to be done, but not everybody's on board.
No, that's a good point, because look, there's still skepticism with Interpol, Tommy, and I'll tell you, one of the biggest areas of skepticism, I guess, is the trust factor, right? And what I mean by the trust factor is, you have the United States sharing information with China or Russia or some of these other countries, and we can't share information, or vice versa, right?
Right.
Why are we going to give information if we feel they're involved? Interpol doesn't work like that. It could be walled off. You could use Interpol and deal with certain countries. You don't have to deal with all the countries. The communication platform is set up in a way where you can only deal with certain countries or have them involved. Or if you want to stay out of the Interpol sort of lane, you could do bilateral or multilateral investigations where you go direct with the country. We have liaisons and attaches in countries all over the world. So we could go bilateral or multilateral. Interpol is just one more tool, right? As law enforcement agents, we have many, many, many tools that we could use. Depending on the case and depending on the situation surrounding the case, there may be an opportunity to utilize the resources. People may say, I'm not going to use them, and that's fine. But what I would argue is, and in my talks to folks, I would I guess argue or try to get them to realize is that it's a tool. Use it if you think it's going to be helpful. Try it, and if not, don't. But if you think it's going to help, what harm will it do to at least so run it by your own countries. National Central Bureau, just to find out if there's any value for how many times have you had a case where you ran into brick walls left and right and said, all right, let me try run it. You do all your standard checks and then open source and using all the tools that we have. How many times have you run into a wall and said, what else should I try? Well, maybe try Interpol or something, give it a shot.
Yeah. I had a case where we did an Interpol lead. You'll laugh. There was a case back in 1996, I believe. A fireman was shot in a firehouse through the window with a shotgun. And same thing you just pointed out, Mike. We ran out of leads. The only thing is that the ballistics lab, they were stainless steel pellets, and they were shaped very oddly. So somebody said, hey, my understanding is there's a place in a town called Chedid, France, that manufactures ammo like that. So reached out to Interpol and asked if they would send someone to that place in Chedid, France, to see if they did make this ammunition and if any was sent to the United States. So what happened was the folks in Chedid, France, very like niche ammo, said, they replied through the French police, who then replied back through Interpol, no, we haven't shipped it to the United States, but we did ship it to a place in Canada. So then we reached out to that place in Canada where we didn't use Interpol for that. And they were like, well, we have one person in the U.S. that handles our ammo, is in Bellingham, Washington. So we reached out to that place in Bellingham, Washington, and they had 2 customers ever in New York State. One of them lived right down the block from the firehouse. The other lived in upstate New York. Case closed. So, I mean, but yeah, we were able to, with the Interpol's help, to have them do an interview at that ammo manufacturer in Chedid, France. So, yeah, when you run into a brick wall, sometimes it's the only time, candidly. Well, there was one other time that we worked with Interpol. It was the only time. And I was just a regular, somewhat new detective in the 4-5 squad when we reached out to them.
So that's the case. When you wrap that up, you go to the tavern and do a hot wash on the case, like we're doing right now, and
we
laugh
went to the Fiddler's Elbow, my
off.
friend. We went. My sergeant bought me a steak for that one. We went to the Fiddler's Elbow on East Tremont Avenue in Toronto. That was part of our show a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah. So let's wrap up the Interpol stuff. 92 Charlie was Interpol involved in a Natalie Holloway who went missing in Aruba. So before you answer that, because it sounds like maybe or maybe not, you probably weren't there for that, but maybe you weren't. But hold on. I've worked a couple of Caribbean and South American, like Trinidad, Georgetown, and Guyana, and then mostly Caribbean. But for me, as a local New York City Bed-Stuy cop, detective sergeant, lieutenant, whatever, we used to laugh that if they went from the 7-9 to the 7-3, which is about a mile away, they're so far on foreign turf, they think they need a passport. You know what I mean? So I don't have a lot of international experience. I had a few, but not a lot. It sounds like we're not using it enough, and the detectives are not using it enough. Yes or no?
I think we should be. Yeah, no, I agree. I think again, just the detectives, and I was up in New York City. We have New York City detective assigned to Lyon, the detailed over there, NYPD, because NYPD is a big user. She's assigned to this counterterrorism unit. Great person and detective. But yeah, we should be using it a lot more. And you mentioned the Caribbean. That's a perfect example with all the guns that are coming in and going out through the Caribbean, utilizing TNT, Trinidad and Tobago or Jamaica, some of these places that are known to facilitate, or working with CARICOM or CARICOM Impacts, which is a conglomeration of a lot of the Caribbean police forces. Who are working in conjunction with Interpol is so important. You're going to get the information, right? It may not be just to, you're not going to be arresting through Interpol, but you're going to get the information to make the arrests. That's what's so important about it, right? We run into brick walls. We're going all around following the leads. See what Interpol has. It may not have anything, or it may be helpful. Again, it's a tool. I would recommend it's an important tool to at least try.
Yeah. All right. So wrapping up on Interpol, let's do some photos and then we're going to go into FLEOA. So let's do, so you're presenting. I'm going to go screw them. I'm going to go through them. I'm not going to screw them. I'm going to go
Please,
through them.
yes, let's not have that happen on camera.
So just comment on some of the places you've been around the world. And then 92 Charlie, it's mind-blowing how many agencies don't share or work together to solve crimes. No kidding. It's the biggest problem for sure. Or one of the biggest problems. Go ahead, comment on this photo.
So that picture there is New Jersey chiefs of police. I think that's Mitch Schuyler there, and a bunch of New Jersey police chiefs who came down, and we did a talk with them.
Okay, so here we go, some Interpol stuff. Here we go.
And that's a dear friend. He was the vice president of the BKA, the German police force. He just retired. Michael Kretschmer, awesome police officer. great German partner overseas, helped out on a lot of cases. Terrific. Congratulations on his retirement.
So we got Germany. Which picture was this you shared?
So this was my chief of staff on my left in the picture. Sharon Duncan, she was with the Marshals Service. She served as my chief of staff. She just retired in December as well. And the other one was a dear colleague from Sweden, Annette Angela. She's terrific. She's with Interpol and the Sweden National Police. Excellent.
Gotcha. Okay. What country? Is this Belgium? Is this Belgium?
This is the Belgium embassy.
Yep.
That's Derek Driscoll, all the way on the other side of me. He was the deputy director at the Marshals, and now is the COO over at NCMEC. And then Patrick, he is the Belgium attaché who's leaving this year. And then Vince, right to my immediate left, he was IACP international director.
Gotcha.
Hey, that's I think that was in Dubai when we were at the General Assembly there, and that is the entire U.S. team. So this is the team, not only the delegates who sat at the table, did the voting and represented, but all the people from the U.S. who came to join the General Assembly. I see some FBI folks up there.
Is that Jolene Loria up front?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Tommy, that young lady there, Jolene Loria, holds the purse strings to DOJ. No money gets spent at DOJ without Jolene Loria giving the thumbs up.
Oh, we like that. Let's save that. I'm going to save this photo. All right, let's move on. Let's move on. This is
this is, yep, that's Bali. So one of the things that I did, made it a point, was when I traveled to other countries representing the U.S. And met with their leaders, one of the things that I was researched and asked to do was visit their national law enforcement memorials. I'm a big proponent, a big participant in National Police Week here. Worked with the concerns of police survivors, peer support with the Marshals and all over. And one of the things that I insisted, if they were willing to do it, was going to their memorials and laying a wreath to show respect for the officers who lost their lives.
Yep. Okay, next one.
So this is the executive committee when I was elected to the committee. So we have all the executive committee members, aka the board of directors for Interpol, and they come from all over: Turkey, UK, Spain, Nigeria. Secretary General, who was from Germany there, the president, and right in the middle, who was from UAE, Sharka, to the left of him, who was from the Czech Republic. The fella next to her is Valdis Urquiza, who is the delegate for Americas, Vice President for Americas, who's now the Secretary General, then me, then the delegate from India, and then the delegate from China.
Yeah, okay. Real quick, before we go to the next photo, Stephen SS Tiger, $10 to the super chat. Thank you for your service in the fascinating story, Schlante. So appreciate it. Mike, I'm sure he appreciates it. Little hoist of the Guinness. Sorry, I've got a Chilean Sauvignon Blanc, so that's not going to work. But that's it. That's it for the pictures. So why don't we do this? We are an hour and 40 minutes in, hour and 35 minutes in. Time to pivot to FLEOA. So Pete, you work with and for Mike in FLEOA. So I'm going to leave it to you guys. Mike, it is the Tavern. It is the Tavern. So I'm going to grab a bio break. But why don't you tell the audience, you guys share FLEOA before you guys get into the mission and what you're doing. What's it all about?
Right. Well, let me get started. First off, I don't work with FLEOA. I work with the foundation that's associated with FLEOA, and that's how I got to meet Mike.
We're splitting hairs.
Which was no, yeah. But the FLEOA stands up for the agents when they're in trouble. The foundation helps them when they have some financial needs because of an injury or whatnot. But I will say this: I owe FLEOA my career because when I blew the whistle on Operation Fast and Furious, the Department of Justice was not very happy with me, and you know, if it wasn't for having FLEOA and their attorneys on board, that my testimony in front of Congress alone would have cost me about $50,000 to $60,000. So, you know, FLEOA is the equivalent of like the PBA or DEA if you get in trouble. They're like a union, but feds can't have a union. But it's an outstanding organization, and I know, Mike, you've put your heart and soul into it. So I just wanted to put that out there before I turn it over to you to talk about FLEOA itself and what you've done there, and just a great accomplishment.
No, thanks, Pete. Look, like you, FLEOA has really stepped in times of need for me and thousands of other federal law enforcement officers and agents. It started back in 1977, as we know, by some folks who were in trouble and were able to defend themselves, and it just has grown to an incredible organization. You heard me at the beginning say how one of the first one of three pieces of advice that were given to me is join FLEOA, which I did, and very well money spent for the amount of money you put in, which is minimal for the year dues. You get that protection in case something goes bad. You get hit with an IA, EEO, grievance, something comes up. FLEOA will be there to help you out. Even questions that come in, not counting the camaraderie that we have, the discounts that go on, and so forth. Federal agents, federal officers, we don't have unions, and 1811's criminal investigators can't have a union. So FLEOA basically serves as the association to help officers. We are not a union, we're an association, but we provide that service to our members. And even now, we just brought on another. I'll give you an idea. We have a slew of attorneys who help defend our members, and we just brought on Tom Chittum. I don't know if anyone knows Tom. He used to be deputy director. He was acting director of the ATF not too long ago. Retired. He's an attorney. He came on, big gun guy, but with all the shootings that are going on, he was a perfect fit for our gun cases and shooting cases. So FLEOA is there for our members. We have grown now to 33,000 members. Now that's active and retired and an associate. We have over 7,000 retired members. That's a lot of retired members. But but with all the things that are going on, LEOSA issues and so forth, they realize that it's important to still have one that representation, but have that link to law enforcement, being able to share ideas and go to the chapter meetings and participate and have that camaraderie and still have access to all the discounts that we have. And we're doing a lot of work on the LEOSA front.
Yes.
Sure that
in fact, you beat the shit out of New Jersey. Thank you.
Yep, New Jersey, Rhode Island, and we're going to continue because look, it's important that LEOSA basically it needs to be reformed. The rules everywhere are different. So one of the pieces of things that we do, the benefits, huge benefit, is our advocacy work on the Hill and with the administration. We're dealing constantly with congressional members and their staff to make sure that officer safety, pay and benefits, recruitment and retention, everything that affects law enforcement is represented. Our members are represented, and that we're pushing forward to advance the members' interests. Now that said, I came on last year and found ourselves in a situation during Police Week where we were defending not getting our Social Security supplement taken away. If you're familiar with that, if you retire before age 62, you get a Social Security supplement. If we were fighting to not have our FERS, our federal employee retirement system benefits taken away. Or reduced. We're fighting not to have the retirement benefits increased, but where they would take out more money from the active person's paycheck. We were able, through meetings with over 200 offices, advocacy work, to have that all knocked out. All the stuff that they were trying to take away from federal law enforcement, we were able to have that knocked out and remain whole, right? And now we're on offense, where we continue to fight for the pay and benefits. Right now, there was a special pay rate that was introduced above federal pay rate, federal government employee pay rates, where it was 1% this year. There were special pay rates for certain law enforcement agencies to get 3.8%. We will not rest with just 3.8 for some, but not all of our federal officers. So we continue to fight. We were able to get some agencies included. We continue to fight for all. And things like that really affect the member. I always say, as a deputy U.S. Marshal, as a police officer, you can mess with me however you want. My leadership, don't mess with our people's finances and pockets.
One thing I'll say to it, just for the folks listening, because I know that it's a federal law enforcement officers association. Most of our listeners are NYPD centric, not all. But look, some of what FLEOA does benefits people outside of FLEOA, like what they're doing with the LEOSA, for example. Those rulings that they're winning benefit an off-duty cop or retired cop rather, who's carrying a gun in another state, as long as they're carrying with the LEOSA cred. I mean, what they're doing, it really expands across the entire law enforcement community. And then the other thing that was nice, I don't know, when did it happen? I know it wasn't super recent, where the Coast Guard is now allowed to join FLEOA because they have a law enforcement mission. I know that wasn't always the case, but now if you're a member of the Coast Guard or if you're a reservist, you can join FLEOA in a certain capacity and have some of these protections as well, which I think is great.
Yeah, the ability to join the Coast Guard, DOW, Department of War, right? Officers, Pentagon Police, Army CID, NCIS, the military components, as long as they have a law enforcement mission, they carry weapons with arrest authority, right, under a federal statute, pretty much, if they're a federal law enforcement officer, they could join the association. They should be listed in our agencies, approved agencies, even OIGs, inspector generals. They're part of it. You talked before about FLEOA, how many agencies there are down there. We got EPA criminal investigators. We have FDA criminal investigators. If you are a federal law enforcement officer, agent, arrest authority, carry a badge or ability to make arrests, you could join. I am absolutely shocked by folks who don't. Think about it. We have 33,000 members. There are probably 120,000 members. With everything that's going on now and always, right, within law enforcement, to have that layer of protection for the amount of money, what do we pay? It's a retired, Pete, $60, but an active around 160 maybe. It's a piece of insurance. It's peace of mind for you and your family if something goes wrong. I just think it's amazing how many people don't join. But we continue to fight. Police Week is coming up in May. We'll be on the Hill. We'll be out there full force looking at the Law Enforcement Equity and Parity Act. It's another thing. I don't know how many feds are out there, but if you cap out, you stop earning money after that. I remember in my paycheck at the bottom of it, not at end, they told you how much you lost. You lost $600. You lost $1,000. That didn't even count the hours that we put in overtime, because who's counting the hours when you're working cases and stuff like that? You're just working them. But we're fighting to make sure that the pay, look, at least pay the officers, or do things like let it be a write-off for officers. Take that money and let them write it off on the taxes. Give us something. There's a lot of cool bills that we're pushing for now.
Tommy, most of the people listening will not believe this. but there's a federal pay cap, and it's tied to, I think, was it a junior congressman's salary? So you can make more than that in the scales, in the OPM pay scales, but you can't take home more than that. So once I was like a GS 14 step 5, that's I couldn't make the pay I was entitled to. So I would get a pay stub, like when I was the ASAC in Miami, I would get a pay stub every 2 weeks that would say on the bottom like $658 per paycheck that I couldn't get. So it was in my salary, but I couldn't get it, and it doesn't count towards your pension. So it's this weird rule. So yeah, you just lose money once you reach a certain level in the federal pay system. And until you become a senior executive service member, then you can get more than that amount of money.
Yep.
Yeah, you literally get a statement every 2 weeks with the money that you're not getting.
Yeah, that's wild. Absolutely wild. Let me ask you a question. Whether it be DEA, ATF, U.S. Marshals, FBI, what is that cap on for the director or the number one job in each of those places?
The director of ATF makes $174,000 a year.
$174,000 a year.
Statutorily capped. So there are assistant directors that are making $225,000. But the director,
I made more. Can I just say I made more than that when I retired? I retired 20 years ago.
There are top pay GS 13s that are making more than the director.
I mean, I made it with overtime. No, so if you think about, let's say, the ATF director, a couple thousand employees. What is it? 2,000-3,000 people. What's the total employee? Not sworn, but total employee
for ATF. About 5,200 employees.
5,200 people.
Yeah,
5,200 people. What's the budget?
$1.2 billion.
If you were a CEO, you're making over $1 million a year.
Yeah.
You're trying to figure out why you can't recruit talent, why you don't have leadership. Like, there's a million reasons why you don't have great leaders.
But
if you want a great leader, you pay them $178,000 for that responsibility.
A lot of these people get picked because they're politically active and they have the money. I mean, the former Inspector General, for example, Stephen Horowitz, was filthy rich before he set foot into the position as a presidential appointee. He stayed there for years. A lot of these guys, it's just great to have on their resume. They're patriotic folks. They want to come in and serve. But a lot of them, I hate to say it, don't need the money. But the sad part is you're entirely correct, because what that does is that makes it impossible for some people to take the job because they might not be able to afford it. I will say this. The current ATF nominee, who's, by the way, scheduled to be have a confirmation hearing on February 4th, is a retired he didn't retire, he vested out. NYPD, was a legendary gang investigator, guy named Bobby Cicada. Phenomenal guy, should absolutely get the job. If he does get it, he will be the most operationally savvy director we've ever had. And I like a lot of our former directors, but Bobby did the job. But the only reason Bobby could do it is because he's eligible to retire and can, as a retiree, can request a waiver and would get the director salary on top of his pension. Derek Boltz, who we had on as a guest, who was doing very well in the private sector, same thing. Derek was making about $174,000 because DEA has that same cap. And very talented guy. Patriot. If he wasn't a patriot, he wouldn't have taken a pay cut and come in. So, I mean, that's the sad part. These directors' jobs, they're not making what the commissioner of the police department is making, or candidly, even probably what an assistant chief is making.
Yeah. I think you mentioned Rob from ATF. He's a career guy. When you get these career guys coming in these positions, it really helps out a lot. They understand the culture, they understand the direction if they're good. And somebody like Rob, former NYPD, and other great positions coming up through the ranks. Well liked. I haven't heard anybody who didn't like him. Great friend, just doing an amazing job, and we're all rooting for him and hoping that he gets it. And Tommy, I'm going to step out for 1 second. I'll be right back.
Yeah.
But as you know, Tommy, I know Bobby for 35 years, man. The guy was a great cop, and he's a phenomenal human being. So ATF would be very lucky to have him. And he's a friend of FLEOA. I see him at the FLEOA gatherings. But I see him. Well, I just had lunch with him.
Yeah, well, why don't you give a nod? Wasn't Bobby Cicada, who you're suggesting? Well, you're explaining is up for the nomination of the. Wasn't he actually housing?
He was a housing cop. He was PSA.
The other police department.
Then he went to work for Louis Sabelli in Cage in Street Crime.
Oh, Louis Sabelli. So I've been texting back and forth, so we got to acknowledge Louis Sabelli. So Louis, I'm going to do a clip on this and send it to you. Good.
Yeah, so no, he worked for Louis. Then he left the NYPD for reasons that were legitimate. Went down to, I believe it was Plantation, Florida, or I could be wrong about the time. It was a cop down there for a while. Then went to ATF, was an agent in Hyattsville, killing it. Did the first big MS-13 case, and then rose through the ranks. Man, he ground out the work. He wasn't part of anybody's camp. He wasn't one of those guys that jumped from regime to regime. He just ground out the work. So.
Yeah, Pete and I talked about regimes and who stays in them and Joe Cortesis on the Executive Perspective talked about not being in Banks's regime and still getting pulled into it. And man, once you're at those levels, it's hard to keep like who you're associated with, who you align with. Hey man, we're here trying to do the job, And I don't go out drinking with these guys. I don't go out having steak dinners. They're not at my house. They're not at my kids' birthday parties, but you're in the office. You're in the office, man.
Tell me, how many times when you have a guy, you're part of a regime, right? So you're trusted. The new commissioner loves you. You're his guy, or the deputy commissioner, whoever. And then the new regime comes in, right? Well, you're loyal to the old guy. We don't want you anymore. Get the fuck out. So you're now probably driving road therapy somewhere else. They bring in their own. That's why I found it best to not tie myself to anybody's regime. Just do your job. Don't kiss anybody's ass. Yeah. If you're not in anybody's club, you don't have to worry about getting thrown out of the club.
Yeah. Mike, I'm going to let you talk because I want to talk about the agents going on in ICE and everything and what you guys are doing for them. But before we do it, on the Executive Perspective, when Joe Cortesis talked about being in Banks's office and running ComStat for them, and then when Banks left and then Terry Monahan took over, and like Joe was out hunting at 10 o'clock at night, and it gets the call. He's like, "So where do you want to go?" He's like, "I'm not even in the office. I'm out hunting. Can it wait till I come back to work?" He's like, "No, just tell us where you want to go." I mean, that's how fast like the regimes change. And like, you're in, you're the best. You're out, you're a pest. You got to move on. Get out of here. See you later. Thanks for the work. Hearty handshake, pat on the back. We'll throw rose petals around. We'll hug and kiss you. But where do you want to land? Oh my God, so funny.
Yeah,
what a fucking job. Oh my God, so good. Mike, let's do it. Let's wrap up. Any final thoughts on that? And then let's talk about these ICE agents and these poor guys doing a job that they're in the middle. So
yeah, just a quick note on that, because I think it's important that look, I came up when I became a political appointee, I was a career guy. So I came up through the ranks and was able to by I would say by luck and a little work, just being in the right place at the right time, seeing that door open and be able to take advantage of it, being nominated and then finally appointed as the U.S. Marshal in D.C. But then something that I always tell people, you're a law enforcement officer, right? In your career, at least, especially when you become an executive, keep your politics out. Stay focused on mission. You gotta stay focused on the mission, on what you need to get done, and I think that's part of the reason I think I was able to go from administration to administration as an appointee, going from Obama to Trump to Biden to probably could have stayed with Trump, but it's about doing a job and making sure you're representing the agency. However, that's not always true, because these people who are brought in as politicals, just what you said, Tommy, you never know when you're going to get that call. And you could get that call and you pack your bags and you may not be in the office and you got to go in and get it, or they pack it for you and drive you home. But that's the job. If anybody's ever going for a political appointment, you got to understand that it's a gamble. If you aren't eligible to retire, that's one thing people look at. Am I eligible to retire in a year or two? Because if you don't make it, you'll lose your retirement, right? You can't. Sometimes you don't have that reinstatement right. So it's really important when you're considering in leadership roles or executive roles, let's say, because leadership comes in every, as we know, comes in every rank. But in an executive role, you got to really consider whether to do it or not, because it could be it's a gamble.
Yeah.
So what's going on with these guys in Minnesota? Let's wrap this up. How do we know, the shootings and all of the chatter on social media, the media on both sides, everyone's jumping to conclusions. Pete's weighed in on social media. I've weighed in a little bit on social media, not as much. I mean, why can't everybody just wait for the investigation? And they're excluding the only thing that matters is the Supreme Court decisions that have already decided in the moment, nothing before, nothing after. That's the moment. And they're put in these positions. So where are you at, Mike, with this and looking out for the best interests of the federal agents that are out in the field right now facing a condition I've never faced, to be honest with you, before? I couldn't even imagine what they're going through. So what can we do? What can the listeners do? How does your organization and how does the community who are supportive of law enforcement and the rule of law, federal, state, and local, what can we do?
Yeah, no, Tommy, it's interesting to see what's going on. I don't think anybody who's listening here has seen something like we're seeing nowadays. And when you start to see federal officers, being attacked or being doxxed a lot, where they're looking who they are and going after them or their families, that's not a good thing. Law enforcement, once we start losing the respect for law enforcement, then we start to disintegrate and to sort of descend into chaos. And that's not, I don't think anybody wants that, because the rhetoric that we're hearing out there on all sides, left, right, middle, the bad rhetoric is the thing that incites the violence in a lot of ways. And so we got to be keeping a cool head as the public. Keep a cool head until the investigation is completed. We have the right to protest, right? That is something, but that doesn't extend the right to do violence, right? Protest. Let's get our points across. That's important, and that should and could be done on all sides. But when federal law enforcement is going after violent criminals out in the street, we have to be supportive of that. And I think that's the argument, is people may have a misunderstanding of what folks are doing. I don't think there's anybody in the political spectrum who would argue that going after violent criminals is a bad thing. I think that's important for all communities. So to keep our community safe. And so I think it's a matter of keeping a cool head and letting this play out. We're watching now, even as the governor of Minnesota meets with the president, they pulled out the Border Patrol commander, and they sent Tom Homan. Now, Tom is known to have a pretty cool head in a lot of arenas and worked with both left and the right across party lines. And I'm hoping that the negotiations and the talks that go on are productive. The violence needs to stop all around. If there is and look, we're for full accountability, right? I think any law enforcement officer realizes that accountability is part of our job. I am actually a huge proponent of body worn cameras, because we used them in the Marshals. I used them in my office. It got more people off of being in trouble, exonerated from complaints or allegations than anything else. Saved those body worn cameras. At the beginning, I think we probably were all skeptical, right? Oh, I got to wear a camera on me all the time. But once you started seeing the results of when allegations were presented, you realized, hey, this is a pretty good thing. So I think the accountability, everybody would agree, the accountability has to be there. If we make a mistake in our career, we're held accountable for it. But if we're not, we should be exonerated. And that's the thing that we try to help with. The agencies are supplying the attorneys, right? When wrongdoing or accusations are being done, for the most part, unless it's criminal, then the individual will have to go and get their own attorney for the most part, generally. And that's where we could help, or if allegations, internal affairs and things like that. As long as it doesn't go criminal, we could have a hand in that. That said, a lot of it's this rhetoric that's going on. We have to tamp it down. We have to give it a chance to give people a chance to do their jobs and we got to make sure they're doing their jobs correctly. But we have to be looking out for the welfare of our officers. The officers that are there to be protecting the community, not to be doing anything else but that. And that's what we need to keep an eye on. Things are a little out of control right now. We have to get that back into a point where everybody realizes that they're being protected and trust the police.
Yeah, Tommy, the thing that people forget, especially the people who just don't educate themselves, is these guys are enforcing the laws that have been around since before there was a DHS. Back when there was an Immigration and Naturalization Service, it was part of the Department of Justice. Those laws have been in existence since then. And I get it. Some of the laws are unpopular now. There's some folks want open borders, whatever. But that's not the problem. The issue is these guys are enforcing laws that were written by Congress and signed into law by a president generations ago. If you have a problem with that, lobby Congress. Only Congress can change the law, right? These guys are going there every day and doing a duty that they swore to do. They're enforcing a law. Again, it might be unpopular. But for argument's sake, what happens if somebody decides, and this is actually common, in some places they don't like our gun laws. So, hey, why don't we just interfere with ATF? Hey, you know what? The drug laws kind of suck too. If you like to smoke meth, hey, let's go interfere with DEA operations. I personally can't stand our tax laws. Let's go mess with IRS, CI. I mean, at what point do you draw the line is the problem I have. You have a problem, take it up with your elected officials and have them propose legislation. When have you seen one of these big mouths that makes all of this noise about our current immigration laws? When have you seen them write up a bill and try to put it before the House to change the law? They don't. They spew venom and they make money off of it through seeking out contributions. And that's the problem. That's really the folks who really need to be put right. These poor agents, I don't envy them at all. And I feel bad for them. I really do. Tough job.
Yeah, and Pete, you mentioned something important. As law enforcement officers, we don't make the laws. We enforce the laws. And I had to testify not too long ago up at the House and House Homeland Security Committee. And it was it was about protecting folks who wear the badge, right? And hearing a lot of the comments from the lawmakers, a lot of times I had to come back and say it's not the law enforcement officers don't make the laws. You do. You're making these laws. So if you don't want them to enforce these laws, change the law.
Yes.
That's their job. Our job is to enforce it. I may not want to, arrest somebody for something, but that's my job. That's the oath that I swore, right? And that's the job that I need to do. Enforce the law, whatever that law may be. People don't understand that sometimes. We don't make the laws; we enforce them.
It's just like any job that you have, right? When you're a direct report to executives and stuff, and I've done this in the police department, I've done this in private sector. And if I'm not in the decision-making role, just tell me what you want done. And when you tell me what you want done, I'm going to execute on it. But if you don't have the right rules, the right procedures, the right mission, the right strategy, whatever it is, it's not my problem. I'm just doing what you told me to do. I'm a good soldier. I'm a good, like, and you know what? If you want to peel me back, but like these federal agents that are out in the country, in all of these cities, they're being told what to do. It is not about them. These protesters who are not peaceful, and they're attacking, doxing, like you said, Mike. So let me call back Ron Lason's local law enforcement needs to quell the disobedience before it boils over. This does not violate BS sanctuary city laws. So, someone's got to step up on either side and say, everybody stop, let's take a pause, hold on. And then by the time they're finished saying that, there's already a new headline on something else. And then they, instead of saying stop, then they're going to trump that, not Trump, Donald Trump, but like supersede that statement with another statement, and it just never stops. And someone's got to be the boss in the room and say, people, come on, you all know. And I know I have personal, not what I heard, personal experience of talking to politicians on the Hill for legislation in facial recognition and LPR, and meeting with everybody that every one of our listeners have ever seen on any TV show. The senators, the congressmen, the congresswomen. I presented to all of them. And I sat there and I go, you're not the person that I heard on TV.
No, they're not. Well, Tommy, look.
So I know Mike, and we all agreed before we get into the show to not go too deep into political. I'm just saying, like, this is about the people and the safety of the community to live peaceably. Nothing else is more important than that. Because after that, if you don't have that, you have nothing. And then your rights. So I'm not going to go down a rabbit hole on this. Go ahead, Pete.
Yeah, no, another thing, and Ron touched on it too. Look, one of the things that really bothers me is some of the vitriol that's being spewed. Look, both sides are guilty. I don't think that it was wise for the Homeland Security Secretary to call a person a domestic terrorist without an investigation happening. Just like I don't think it's smart for a mayor or a governor to call a federal agent a murderer before the smell of gunpowder dissipates from the air, when that hasn't been investigated either. So there's a lot of wrong here. But when you look at some of the talking points, all these untrained federal agents, I touched on it earlier. We both did. Let me tell you something. Border Patrol, those dudes are very, very, very well trained. Then let's look at some of the people from Border Patrol who were there. Let's go a little bit deeper. Some of them were BORTAC guys. These guys were the heroes of the day at Uvalde when the local police froze and they broke through the barrier and ended that active shooter scenario at the school. Now they're the devil, And there was one politician that was even talking about how ICE shot the fingers off some lady, and then CCTV camera, or rather some camera, shows the idiot picked up a flashbang.
She picked up a flashbang. Yeah.
Well, I mean, there's so many folks that just spew stuff without all the facts, and that's what that is that's not leadership. But yeah, like some federal agents are trained better than some local cops. And look, I love my time in the NYPD, Tommy. I'm very fond of my time there as a cop and as a detective. I will tell you, I was trained a lot harder and certainly a lot more when it came to tactics with ATF than I was with NYPD. So again, I mean, I don't know what Minnesota's training package is up there in Minneapolis. I will say I'm very, very, very disappointed in that chief's lack of leadership. And he even made some comments recently that at this point, it doesn't matter what the investigation says because people are upset.
Yeah.
When it comes to the officer involved shooting, really? The facts don't matter. The law doesn't matter now because people are upset. I mean, what's going on up there is really, it's almost like a class in how not to lead.
Yeah, so Ron wrote DEA. Ron wrote DEA before, but he meant ATF. So
I love all my federal brothers, even the FBI a little bit. So we're good.
So listen, check this out. We are at 2 hours and 10 minutes. approaching the longest podcast because Mike Hughes is so awesome and such a cool dude. And he's drinking his Guinness. And we all took, Pete, why don't you take a bio break? Come on, round it out. Let's get the hat trick, you know? But anyway, any final thoughts, Pete? And then on anything we talked about tonight, we'll keep fighting the fight. We'll keep supporting our currently active federal, state, and local law enforcement people. I got to get, because I know Pete wants to talk about this so bad. Chief O'Hack is a bitch on the leash of Comrade Faye. Just yes or no, do not commentary.
I think his
you'll
choice
go,
of supplements on festivals, but beyond that, I won't speak. He's got some testicular atrophy, but that's all I'll say.
Yeah, it's so bad. Like, come on, guys. And we had Monty Bynum on with leadership. We've had so many leadership conversations on this podcast. And some of the U.S. Marshals, Federal Task Force, NYPD Task Force with the Marshals, John Cornicello, shout out, previous guest, NYPD. We did that a couple weeks ago. So, John, if you're still listening, you gave me the green light to mention your name, so we did that.
We had David Gonzalez, too. We had David Gonzalez on as a previous guest.
David Gonzalez.
Yeah, man.
We have great guests, Marshals. So, Pete, final thoughts. Mike Hughes, final thoughts, and then I'm going to do a 10-4 Tavern, Finest Unfiltered wrap-up.
My final thoughts, Mike. Great having you on. Good seeing you again, brother. Usually when I see you, you're in a suit because we're at some sort of a function. Well, it's good to see you relaxed. Look forward to next time our paths cross. Thanks for coming on, brother. Really good seeing you and hearing your story.
Thanks, Pete. Really appreciate it. Thanks, Tommy. Thanks, Pete. This was great. I had a great time. You guys really told the truth. The only thing I regret is not having another one, but maybe I will after this. It's good. The one thing I'd say, I guess, final thoughts is thinking about this. You got to have hope, right? The cops on the street, federal, state, local, all want to work together. And I'd say even in Minnesota, if you had the leaders, maybe leadership or let's say the politics out of it, I bet they would go and get the job done. I think it's a matter of the leadership, the executives on all sides coming together, defining the mission. What do we want to do? Come up with the idea we want to do, and then go forth and do it and get some results. Define the operation. I think the communication, like personal lives, professional lives, that's the thing. When communication suffers, everything's going to suffer. Until these guys and gals can get into a room and decide on the parameters of the operation and decide to work together, which I imagine I bet 99% of those law enforcement agents want to do. Until they can do that, it's not going to happen. It's up to the leadership now to come together and be able to say, hey, we're going to define the mission, get it done, and that's it. And so, look, law enforcement, we have to respect them, or we should respect them, right? Law enforcement is there to protect us, our families, our communities, our country. So that's what's important, guys. It's been a pleasure. I really appreciate this time with you both and everybody out there.
So Mike Hughes, the only person to acknowledge that I'm coming on the Tavern without even know the concept or the content. The Tavern, you had me at Tavern, so appreciate that. But no, it's our thing. But Pete, while I'm pulling up the next thing, it's tongue in cheek. We love to share a cocktail in the Tavern, but please don't overindulge. If you're having a problem, please reach out. I had a friend this week that reached out to me. He was on a bender, and I was glad to hear that he had family and friends surrounding him. Talk to him and text him every day. So please reach out. So Pete, this is your cue while I pull up the next.
Yeah, man. But look, our brothers and sisters in Minnesota are going through hell, but it's affecting all of us, and whether if you're one of them up there in Minnesota freezing your ass off and you're hearing me, or you're just a copper agent from somewhere else, man, if you're in a dark place, it's okay to not be okay. It is not okay not to do something about it. So get some help, man. Talk to a priest, talk to a peer, talk to EAP, whoever it is. FLEOA has psychological assistance as well for federal officers. Just find the light, man. Don't sit there in the darkness. I've been there. It's nice to be on the other side.
Yep. So please take an Uber, do what you got to do, make the phone call. I doubt anyone who you really worked with would ever not take a call 24/7, 365. So please do that. Okay. So Finest Unfiltered tomorrow morning. What is today? Tuesday. So tomorrow morning, 8:05. We've got FBI corruption allegations. Let me get the. Oh shoot! I had it. I want to get the write up. I lost it. Anyway, tomorrow, special guest Peter Gleason. He's an attorney, the former NYPD and the FD insider files explosive fire department corruption complaint. And then that's tomorrow at 8:05 in the morning on Wednesday morning. And then Wednesday night or evening, I should say, at 5:05. And thanks, Ron and Rob, for like interrupting my dinner every Wednesday. So I always have to watch you on replay and I can't like tool on you guys in chat. Minneapolis, shoot or don't shoot, constitutional concealed carry or common sense. Episode 49 for the executive perspective. Ron and Rob delve into the incident involving the U.S. Border Patrol and an armed protester. They will explore the legality and carrying of firearms at protests and demonstrations, as well as responsibilities of individuals who lawfully carry firearms and interacting with law enforcement. They will also discuss the training provided to concealed carry permit holders, which I think is interesting. That's a really interesting part of it. And whether the latest shooting could have been prevented. Join the live chat for another intense issue. So those are the two shows coming up in the next 24 hours tomorrow on Wednesday. And then, of course, on the outro music, you'll see the full schedule for the Finest Unfiltered. So let's see. Ron, Rob, Executive Perspective, thanks for all you do. Great shows. Appreciate it. Like I said, I wish I could jump in on the live chat. And then Marlon, Eric, and John, Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. So please jump in on the Finest Unfiltered. We are over 90,000 subscribers on the Finest Unfiltered. We were at 60,000 only a couple of months ago. So things are rocking and rolling. Really appreciate it. Thanks for all the support, all the viewers, all the chat members. Really appreciate you guys. Please stay safe, everybody. You have a God-given right to live peaceably. And that's what this podcast is all about. So. Guys, anything? Final thoughts before I go to the outro?
No, we're good. Thanks.
Mike, stay in the green room. We'll debrief and do a hot wash after the 30 seconds, and we'll talk.
All right.
Good night, everybody. Be safe.
Night.